Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Middle Mile podcast. This is the Heretics podcast, season one, episode two. This is a continuation of the conversation that Stan and I were having from season one, episode one, where we were talking about what would you do if you knew you would live forever. One of the topics that we meandered onto was what was the most heretical thing that I write in my book? This is Stan's view of what I wrote was most heretical in the book, Walking Passionately Through Seasons of Spiritual Dryness, which you can find on Amazon by typing in the search bar, Walking Passionately. It comes right through. Thank you very much, and please watch the other episodes to catch up for more.
I think the most heretical thing there, if I may, is to focus on this traditional approach that Jesus, in order to be resurrected and to show us that life is eternal in one form or another, had to be suffering an extraordinarily painful physical death. And that somehow that was sort of a payment for some sin that man committed since the beginning. God made a mistake. I remember you once saying or speculating. Um, and even though he tried to destroy the world with the flood, he changed his mind. Well, that happens to parents. We're the children. He's the parent. And it's okay for us to see how that develops. I see as heretical any mentions in the book that detail the idea that there's a need for some sacrifice. Those are the words from the book that I recall. I'll have to reread it. But yeah, that's I know we've spoken about that before because the doctrine of original sin is probably where I'm the most heretical disagreeing with.
Yes. Um, and one of the things I find in the Christian circles that I'm a part of is that there is an emphasis on original sin, and that there is an emphasis on the crucifixion. There's a lot of songs that we sing at church that have to
Oh,
do with the blood of Christ. Only the blood of Jesus, the blood of blood. And there's this idea around that. I was doing some research on this earlier in preparation for this about, you know, this idea of the resurrection and the crucifixion. And it kind of acknowledged that some people are offended by the crucifixion and the brutality of his death. And that's, you know, some person's point of view on it. So I want to validate your point of view, that is something that, you know, many people could reasonably hold around that. And one of the things that I was thinking about in focusing on this question was I feel like without the resurrection, the crucifixion doesn't have the meaning that we would really understand. It's the interpretation of the resurrection is the interpretation of the crucifixion. What does it mean, around that? And that sometimes a voice needs to shout with a megaphone and talk about the resurrection more loudly because in our Christian communities and our religious communities, we are so focused on the crucifixion of Christ. Um, so that's one of the things I wanted to highlight, on this conversation, around that. That perhaps the essential message of Christianity is really about the resurrection. Because if you think about it, when Jesus rose from the dead, the message wasn't Jesus died, because everybody knew Jesus died. The message that was being spread about him was he's risen. I've seen him. He's alive. And that was the message that was being spread in early Christianity.
yes, yes, yes. Without the resurrection, it would simply seem a repetition of the type of religion that was so popular in those days, where you had to have human sacrifices, later on, sacrifices of sheep and lambs and goat, and a lot of blood and a lot of, oh my God, it's awful. But it kind of shows the progress that we've made to focus on, is it possible to believe that he returned from the dead, seen by hundreds, in at least one instance, and then went back to God? And that takes me to, at some point, I would love to just briefly give you my idea of what happens after we are resurrected, because we are going to have it the same as Jesus if we're feeling we're Christian. And that to me is an interesting question. Are we going to be here on earth in a sinless condition, or maybe something a little even more powerful? May I
Mm.
share what my vision is quickly on that?
Yes, please do. Take your time.
Okay. Well, I was 14 years old when I read a short story by a man named Eric Frank Russell. The story is called Soul, Sole, Solution. And he speculated that in the beginning, God, those are the first four words of Genesis, which have always meant that thing to me is in the beginning of anything, if we can bring God into it, created. God created by the power of the spoken word. And he put all of this in motion, with the emphasis being we're going to struggle. We're going to have bad things and good things and all kinds of complexities, as we in fact have seen. The whole goal is to move forward back into God, to be with God, to actually be there inside Him inside us, all back into the one. Some people will be called sinful, some people will be called good, and there'll be all kinds of doubts and certainties and glories and horrors. There's no good and evil. God created the whole thing. It's very much like a picture or a play, and there'll be continuing act. It won't end, but there'll be continual new scenes. And God and I are watching it, just as He is now, front row center. It brings me a comfort to feel that's a way of looking at a possible future that in fact is right now, and helps me feel safe regardless of how anything looks. And the rest of it, it's best if I don't try to make too scientifically theories and details. I'm happy with the mystery.
Hmm.
And it would apply whether I have decided, feel I know, I feel live forever, or in fact, what if I only live next week, as I believe another commentator, GPT or whoever you mentioned, is in the text? What if I knew I was going to die in one day? Would I run around and make phone calls? Yes, no doubt. If I had a week, would I do something different? What if it was now? Would I be panicky? No, it would be fun to think these are my last words to you here now. What a responsibility. And what a shock it will be to you. But you'll spread the word, and maybe other people won't feel fearful. I certainly don't. Not that I've done everything I want to do, although largely that's true. The advantage of being my advanced age, and so fortunate. I've had so many blessings. Tom, I often feel, where's the left shoe? Where's the other foot gonna drop? Do terrible things happen to me? I mean, I've had unhappy events, of course, but none of them seem bad enough somehow to offset all the good. I'm hoping I'm not the only one that feels that way. It's hard to get away from the media and so many folks who are having so many problems.
Hmm. In your
I'm going to shut
view,
up.
are we one with God? Are we God?
Close. We're a part of God. We're never all of God, but we're a piece of Him, I believe. Absolutely. We're created by God is running the whole show. So, in a sense, especially if we think about heaven here on earth or living forever, sure, we're a part of God. Absolutely. We've reunited with God in a total sense
I like that. We're
without
united with
losing the
God.
individualization. I don't, it's a paradox, and there's no way I can explain it, nor do I think it's any important to try. That I'm relaxed enough to be quite happy with doubt and insecurity or mystery, whatever you want it. I don't think I'm sticking my head in the sand and being a, you know. Anyway, that's my fault. That's enough.
Well, thank you so much. That was so beautiful.
Thank you.
Um, so any takeaways from our conversation that we've had so far as we wrap up?
Yes, it's been very exciting and happy, and I'm perhaps some of my words will make some kind of impact on others. You mentioned that you would want to go out and be wonderfully teaching and help people if you felt you were going to. What if you don't live forever? So what? We would still be good people. We would still reach out. We'd still make mistakes. We'd still sin, which is the original meaning of the word mistake, as you know. You missed the mark at the central target in an archery contest. You sinned without all that emotional and guilt and shame overlay. Good Lord. Not only are mistakes necessary, they're absolutely unavoidable. They're desirable. Can't go without them. Thank goodness. Thank God. He's running the whole show. I'm just doing my bit. And it helps to have people like you to stimulate with the books and the talking and the writing. So, yes, I feel very grateful and thankful right here and now. And I'll do my best to keep breathing until at least the end of the podcast so that I won't shock your listeners. No promises. But at least you'll know, boy, did he go out with a bang. Yes, I like to tease about it. I do.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. My takeaway from this is to really live as Christ lived. Um, to live in that mindset, to live in that feeling, and to do as he did. Um, that was what was impressed upon me the most um, uh, in this conversation. It was even before we started this conversation, that thought I had, and I'm going to continue to write out that blog post that I sent you and edit it and fill it, and we'll edit this podcast together so that it gets more polished. But yeah, that's one of the things that um, it put me in a really good mood to kind of come to that revelation.
Well, thank you. That's very complimentary. Uh, Appreciate that.
Yeah.
You're doing such a great job on this.
Thank you.